Okay, on our lesson, we're on lesson 15, and we're on page 63. So turn to page 63. This is what mine looks like. So this is an exact duplicate of what's on the paper. So if I open that page up, your page should look close to that. There's some pages that look similar to that. When I open it up, you don't have nothing on your page in the majority of the books. So that means that we're being very neglectful, and you're not going to be able to get it all done in the classroom. You're going to have to take the paper with you and take 10 or 15 minutes and finish it out, especially with the side notes. You might be able to get some like underlining and highlighting done, but the side notes, that takes a little bit longer to write down. So we're on page 63. And I think we already did the top of the page, am I correct? Yeah. We read down to where it says we were reborn. Yes. Okay, so in the middle chapter, middle paragraph, it says we were now at step 3. So it's basically just giving a quick overview before it actually gets into the step work. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Why would he ask that? Why would someone pray that? Relieve me of the bondage of self. Because self-centeredness and selfishness is the root cause of our addiction. So he's saying, relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Okay, I got that underlined, and then I highlighted this. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. So it's saying step 3 is a step that you don't take lightly. You think about it, and you might have to ask yourself some heart-filled questions. Do I really want this? Am I ready? Do I really want to abandon myself to God? Because if we half-step it, then we're going to half-step everything else in our life. So on the right margin, I got written in my book, don't rush through step 3. Be thorough, ready to abandon yourself to God. The word abandon ourselves is circled, and I got a definition. It says give up completely. Leave your past life completely. To leave and never return. Okay, someone look up Isaiah 55:7 for me.
Turn to the Lord, and he will have mercy on him, and our God, for he will freely pardon.
So what is it that God wants us to turn our back on? According to that verse, it says, let the wicked forsake what?
Way.
His way. So I got to turn from my way to God's way. That's a definition of repentance. Turn from my way to God's way. It goes on and it reads there, next paragraph, we found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it's better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional as long as we expressed the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made, an effect, sometimes a very great one, was felt at once. Okay, now the next statement, next paragraph, it'll go off into the next page. It says, this is highlighted. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action. Circle the word vigorous action. So that means that we gotta stop being passive about our life. A decision to act. We launch out with vigorous action, heartfelt action. It says the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. So I circled personal house cleaning and underline it. Then turning over to page 64, which many of us had never attempted. So that's pretty important. Many of us have never attempted to do a house cleaning, spiritually speaking. On the top of the page 64, I got written this: a decision is not a decision until you act on the decision. So if I'm telling myself for weeks, I really need to start memorizing more verses, or I need to start getting down on my knees and praying, and I'm thinking about it, I'm talking about it to other people, did I make a decision? A decision is made when?
Once you've done it.
Once you put it into action, right? So I can wish it all day long, and I can be convicted about it. I can feel uneasy about it. I can meditate on it. But until I actually say, okay, I'm going to actually do it. The other day in the other AA class, I said that one of our teachers puts his shoes underneath of his bed so that when he gets up in the morning, he must get down on his knees to get his shoes. And while he's down there, then he prays. So that kind of like forces or encourages him to be consistent in getting on his knees when he gets up in the morning. So that's a good little technique to use. But until he decided to do that, it's just wishful thinking. So when it says we have to take a course of vigorous action, and the first thing we need to do is clean house, which many of us have never attempted. It says, though our decision on page 64, though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of it, and things in ourselves which had been blocking us. This is highlighted and underlined. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. If you get down to the causes and conditions and you act on it, you'll never drink again. If you're sitting here and you have relapsed, you did not deal with the causes and conditions. You may have made many decisions, but you didn't act on the decisions that you made. It's a clever way of lying to ourselves is what it is. We make ourselves feel good by thinking about the decisions, but we never really act on those decisions. I'll give you an example. Do you have condoms in your drawer? Do you have condoms in your socks? If you do, you have never done house cleaning. You've got to take an honest look at your life and say, I'm either going to make a clean break and really give my life to God. That's why step 3 says, take it serious. Think it through. Are you ready? Because if you're not ready to get your life in order, then that means you're just in a lull between using episodes. You got to get things in order. You've got to be sincere in your heart that this is what I want. perhaps maybe we have not gotten beat up enough. It says we have to have the desperation of a drowning man. How desperate can you be when you're drowning? Nothing else matters when you're drowning. I've experienced it a couple times in my life. One time when I was young, I thought I was trying to be cool growing up. I was at that point where I wanted to fit in with the crowd, the older crowd, and at a party where there was a pool, there was all these older men and women partying, and it was my opportunity to grow up and try to fit in with the crowd. And they taught me a lesson. They picked me up. I didn't know how to swim, and they threw me into a 12-foot pool. And I'll tell you, I was never so scared in my life. I was trying to tell them this, don't do it, don't do it. I can't swim. I was trying every which way to prevent them from doing it, because I knew that possibly my life would end. I was scared. And they didn't care about my cries. They didn't care about my persuasions. They just wanted to have fun at my expense. And they threw me in. And I sunk down, and I didn't know what to do. I panicked. I just, when you're in a panic mode, you just start doing whatever you can. And I found that I started coming up to the surface by accident, because I was swinging my arms and my legs, because no one taught me how to do that. I just did it out of desperation. And I came up to the top and managed to get over to the side and climb out. And I thought, well, I guess I can swim. For the first time, I said to myself, I guess I can swim. But I had the desperation. I know what it means to be desperate. I almost drowned in the ocean during a hurricane 90 miles off the coast of New Jersey. I narrowly escaped by the skin of my teeth, drowning. I managed to get back to shore. But I was so desperate, nothing else mattered at that point but to live. And I did everything I possibly could. I expended all my energy, all my thoughts, everything on the task at hand, which was to get myself back to shore. So when the AA book says you got to have the desperation of a drowning man, it takes that seriously. When it says over here on page 63 that we must abandon ourselves, that is serious decision making on our part, to act on it, to be sincere about it. So it says our liquor was but a symptom, and we had to get down to causes and conditions. And I put down causes and conditions are things in step 4. Now, people will say, well, I don't want to do step 4 because it's not biblical. Everything in the AA book here is based on Scripture. It just doesn't give you the reference. For example, if you take your Bible and you turn to Luke chapter 19, I'll read you a little story here. Luke chapter 19. This is just one example of many stories in the Bible. Starting in verse 1. Okay, this is what it says. Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. So he had a high status. He probably collected taxes and other things from people. Whatever he did, he was underhanded in what he was doing and how he was living his life. It says, and he sought to see Jesus, who he was. And that's exactly what we're doing in this class, right? Amen. Or in these classes. We are seeking Jesus to see who he is. And he did the same thing. And he could not for the press, because he was little of stature. So it was a crowded place, a lot of people there. They all had their interests. They all had their agenda, their purposes for being there. But his agenda was to seek Jesus, to find out who he was. But he was short, so he couldn't see. And it says, and he ran before. So here he is putting out the desperation of a drowning man, in the sense that he just didn't want to be a part of the crowd. He ran forward. This little guy running ahead of the crowd. He runs ahead. It says he climbs up into a sycamore tree to see him. To see who? To see Jesus. And it says, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up. You know, sometimes we've got to do things to get God's attention. If it means running ahead, we run ahead. If it means climbing a tree, we climb a tree. But a decision is not a decision until we act on what we want. If it's in our heart, we're going to act. If it's not in our heart, we're not going to act. We'll talk all day long about it, but we don't act upon it. The majority of all Christians, once they do get saved, they're superficial in that they'll read the Bible, but when it comes time to actually put it into practice, they seldom seek to do that in many ways. They only seek those things that are convenient, that is easy, that takes no effort. But the areas where it actually takes a decision, then they back off. So that's the tough thing, is that we've got to realize, we as addicts and alcoholics, we can't be passive about our life. We've got to make a decision that we can act on. And it says, when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide at your house. And he did what?
Amen.
Verse 6, what's it say? And he made haste. Now why? He did exactly what Jesus said to do. He said, make haste and come down. He made haste and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was gone to be the guest with a man that is a sinner. So they knew Zacchaeus' reputation, that he wasn't all that great of a guy, that his lifestyle portrayed that which was not popular with society. Verse 8, and Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. Now, why would he make a crazy statement like that? Don't you love what you got? Don't you love your special shirt you got in your drawer, or that you may have on your back? You got some special shoes you enjoy. You might have some other trinkets and things that you really hold dear. And here he's saying, listen, I am serious about my decision for you. I ran, I climbed a tree. You told me to make haste and to get down, and I did exactly what you told me to do. Now I want to do step 4. I've got to address some of the hidden issues in my past. I was a swindler. I was a sinner. I did things underhanded in order to get all the things I got in my life. I stole half of what I got. I did things underhanded. And Jesus, I'm going to come clean. I'm going to clean house. I'm going to make things right. He didn't talk about it. He's making a decision. He says, okay, this is what? Half of my goods I'm going to give to the poor. That's a major step in the right direction. To give up half of what you own to give to the poor. He says, and if I have taken anything from anyone by false accusation, I'll give him back 4 times the amount. That is a major decision. Not giving like dollar for dollar, but I'm going to give back anyone that I have harmed. I'm going to give them back 4 times the amount. Are you willing to do that? You know, that AA book, it gets to certain steps where you've got to make amends. But I say the majority of everyone in this room will do nothing of the sort. You will not make amends. Now listen, there are 2 people I have greatly harmed in my life. And right now, today, I'm making amends. I'm going to tell you how I'm doing it. My mom and dad, I caused them so much harm and trouble. They tried to pull me out of situations, and I could blame them for certain things, but I won't do it because I'm a man. I made my decisions growing up. I can't blame people for my actions and my behaviors. It's what I wanted to do. They did the best they could. But the bottom line is, I can't answer for somebody else's stuff. I got to answer for my own stuff. So I remember some of the horrible things I've done to them growing up. I see the tears. I saw my mom cry, and she's a tough woman. I saw her break down one day and cry like a baby for my sister who died as an alcoholic at 49. I felt so bad for my mom. My sister did worse things than me to my mom and dad. And she cried that one day, and I broke my heart. But over the years, she had a sense of pride that my son eventually got his life together. And she boasts about it from time to time. I hear her boasting about it. But one thing I've done, and she even boasts about this, one thing I've done is I've set out early on to make amends to my parents. It's been years now that I have made a decision, as long as I'm working and I'm capable, that they will always have a cell phone that they don't have to pay for. It's on my plan. Right now, when I moved down to Florida here, 1,200 miles away from my parents, I could have been selfish and self-centered and only thought about me and my family. But what I did was I thought about how can I continue the process of making amends to my parents who are getting much older. And at some point, when I be able to be capable of fending for themselves, what can I do to make amends? They took care of me. Now it's my job and my ability to be able to take care of them. So I looked for a house that was foreclosed that needed a lot of work done on it, but it had an apartment attached to it. And I got that place and I renovated it. And then I said to them, get rid of everything you got, get a U-Haul and come down and I'm going to take care of you. And I flew up and I drove them down. See, I didn't make them drive in their old age. I flew up and I got a U-Haul truck and I drove them down and I moved them in. I take care of their place to stay. I take care of their cell phone. I take care of their cable TV. The only thing they're obligated to do in order to help out because of my finances is that they pay for the utility bill, the electric bill. I pay for their gas bill. In return, they're always taking us out to eat. They're always, from time to time, will just on their own say, here's $50. Here's $100. They're both on SSI. I think my dad gets $500 a month. My dad gets $1,200 a month. My mom gets like $300 or $400 a month. But I've done that. I've always been conscious of trying to make amends to the primary people that I have offended, which is my parents. So somebody's had their hand raised. Mike?
Zacharias here was not only confessing his sins, but he was also obeying the law, correct?
Correct.
That was the law.
In Exodus. In Exodus, it says if you've done that wrong, you're supposed to give them back 4 times. So he's actually obeying Scripture up to what he understood how he was supposed to do it. Someone else had their hand raised? Okay, and this is how Jesus responded. And Jesus said unto him, this day is salvation come to this house, for as much as he is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. You know, when he saw that heartfelt conviction in Zacchaeus that he was willing to not just say it with his mouth, but he was going to act it out in his life, he said, boom, there it is. Salvation has come to this man and this man's house, because in the heart, it says where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. If it's in your heart, you're going to live it. You're going to act it out. You know, and if your heart is out on the street, even though your body's here, it will come out in multiple ways, because you can't hide what's in your heart. It's going to come out when you're out back with the guys, with your conversation and your talk. It's going to happen over in the TV room. It's going to happen when you go to CR. It's going to happen when you go to the MEW. Whatever is in your heart, it always starts to come out in many, many ways. So, you know, you got to be committed. This is what I want, and this is what I'm going to start to change. So it goes on, and it says this here, page 64. So it's not that that these steps are something that you shouldn't need to do. It's actually following biblical mandates and sometimes it can happen quickly. I mean, if you're really serious about your recovery, you're going to jump on things quickly and get it done. So, you know, if you're married, and you finish out this program and you go back home, your word must be gold at all times. I'm just telling you this sincerely. It must be gold at all times. If you make this statement, you will greatly harm the person you're with. Greatly harm this person, but because we're still selfish and self-centered, we don't think twice about it. And I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm telling you this from years of experience dealing with situations. The moment you lie to your loved one, it's over. You hear me? I don't care how much recovery you got. I don't care how much you have achieved. The moment you lie to that woman, it is over as far as you're concerned. In her thinking, she might not show it, express it outwardly, but inwardly she's going to feel it. Why? Because she has years of unaddressed issues dealing with your lives and your behavior. And now you're claiming to be changed. So here you come home claiming that I'm a new person, I'm not that person before. The moment you renege on your commitment scripturally and you lie to her, all the memories of everything you've done to her will come back in one shot. That's how much hurt she's going to feel because of it. You may not be thinking that. You might think, well, you know, if I give this little white lie, it's not going to mean anything. But to her, it means the world. She is dependent upon your honesty and being changed. If you say, look, I am going to Home Depot, but secretly in your mind, you lied to her because you want to go and visit a friend. That is the worst thing you could ever do. You just ruin any effort to get your life together with that person. If you say, okay, I will be home tonight at 9 o'clock, and you show up at 9:05, it is over for you. It is over. I don't care how she acts. I don't care how forgiving she shows outwardly. Inwardly, there's something else going on in her heart. I can guarantee you. Something else going on. The resentment, the bitterness, the hurt. She may outwardly say, that's okay, honey, but I can tell you it's not okay inside because she's not being sincere. I can guarantee you that. She's not being sincere in how she feels because it's just by natural default that all the past episodes of pain and hurt that has been caused that causes a trigger. You know, we got triggers. They got triggers.
Amen.
You hear me? We got our own set of triggers, but they have their triggers. And a trigger for them is when we lie to them and they know it. That's a trigger for them. And the trigger brings back all the past episodes, and then they think this person has not changed. There was one guy who, he finished out and he graduated and got home, but he found a new love. It's called exercising. Now, it may sound harmless. He became a runner, and he had to build himself up to the run. So, you run one day 3 miles, the next day you're going to do 4. You're going to keep building yourself up. A couple weeks later, you might be up to 6 miles. But in order to keep that dedication means you got to do what? Get up early in the morning and probably go in the evening, and you get caught up. That has replaced your drug addiction. I've seen divorces take place after a person graduated because of it. They didn't touch the drugs or alcohol, but they reverted to another love life that they used in such a way that was just as destructive as the drugs and alcohol. And the wife made this statement: "You're no worse, you're no better off than before you went into the program. You're never home. You never tell me the truth. You're always out. You're always this. You're always that. You didn't neglect the kids. You neglect everything else." And that guy eventually relapsed back onto his preferred drug of choice as a result of his obsession with running. So that's why we have to be careful that we have a proper balance and we have our priorities straight, and we're not just switching one obsession for another obsession. Okay, so page 64 in the AA book. Okay, it says, therefore, you see that? Mm-hmm. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. Now, you're probably saying, that takes work. I don't want to do that. I'll tell you what, Rick. I will give you 3 personal inventories. Just it takes me 5 minutes. The majority in this room have done that. You are dead wrong in your approach. You are not thorough, and you're waiting for the opportunity to relapse. You've got to be thorough from the beginning. That's what the AA book says, thorough. It says half steps availed us nothing. We're always looking for an easy way out. We're looking for the road of least resistance. And we'll always go back to the lifestyle that we found comfortable because we have not learned to grow to the point where we have the disciplines to dig deep into our issues. Okay, it says this was step 4. I got this highlighted. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes, it's true. Now, I may not like to have to work for my recovery to get it right, but it is true. I've got to take a look at my life. I've got to take a look at where I've gone wrong. If it is true, like it says above, that my drugs and my alcohol was but a symptom, and I need to get down to causes and conditions, I better start to get down focusing on causes and conditions. I've heard people say, look, I got 4 months clean. It always bothers me when people stress too much about their drugs and alcohol. I got 4 months clean, but they've never dealt with causes or conditions. They've never cleaned house. They've never done anything, but they're in a lull. You know what I mean? A calm before the storm. Anyone on the street can boast about clean time. I don't care how hardcore you are. Everybody has clean time between their using. People in prison boast about that they got 5 years clean. But, they're in prison. Come on. Unless you can get drugs in there, But, maybe you can in certain prisons, but for the most part, it's a little hard. But, I'm even though I go through the motions of, I want to give you credit for clean time, but I don't want to send the wrong signal, if you know what I mean. That's not where our focus should be primarily at. It should be on getting down to causes and conditions and getting down to the real issue at hand. Because if I can cut the trunk of that tree, the leaves will never grow back. But if I'm unwilling to deal with the causes and conditions, the leaves will grow back. I can guarantee you 100%, if you have a problem with women, which most of us in this room do, and you have a problem with loneliness, and you do not address the causes and conditions, you will relapse over and over and over again. It's going to be hard for you to not do it. I escaped it from the skin of my teeth a few times, knowing I got some issues I need to address. It's not that I want to go back to drugs and alcohol, but you tend to gravitate toward people who speak the same language. When you invite a girl over to your room or your apartment, don't tell me it's for a Bible study. Come on. Don't play that game. God don't want to hear that. You're inviting a woman. Did you hear? I said a woman. A woman over. A woman over to your place. Because you want to show her you got something going on. You got money in the bank. You got a job. Now let me show you something else. I got a place. I remember this one girl. I met her. I was supposed to meet her at the mall. I had two vehicles. I had it going on. And one vehicle was a really nice Camaro, brand new. And I had an old pickup truck. And obviously, we put on our best clothes, right?
Amen.
Amen.
And we take a shower, right?
That's right.
Supposed to take a shower, right? We take a shower and we put on our best clothes. We want to present ourselves in the best light to that first date. And I met her, we got to talking. And I shared a little bit about things. I said, I got two vehicles. I got an old vehicle. I got this new Camaro here. So I'm showing off. Take her out into the parking lot. I show it to her. She said, listen, let me give you some advice. As far as a woman is concerned, let me give you some advice. Don't ever drive this car ever again. If you're going to go out with anybody, don't drive this car. You present yourself as someone who don't have nothing. Because she said, I'm telling you, women tend to gravitate toward the money. If they think you got money in any way, they'll be interested. But if they think you're dead broke and you really don't have much going on, except for the normal things in life, and she don't have interest in you, don't try to get blood out of a stone. Walk away from her. She said if she's not genuinely interested. So, I thought about that many times, like, you know what, she's right. I got quit trying to impress women based on things. They've got to love you for your personality and for who you are. Most women, I can't speak for all, but most are interested in your money. I'm 57 years old. I've been through a lot, and I'm just telling you from experience, most women, they want a place to live, they want money in their pocket, and they want to be taken care of. Some are independent and will work themselves, but even though we're commanded to provide, many are gold diggers. They want more and more and more. If you come and you offer a ring and they feel you could have spent more, they're going to let you know. So you'll know when their mind is toward finances and money and greed. They may say, look, if we're going to be together, I want my name on your checkbook. I want to have a joint account with you.
Are you crazy?
They may make that statement right from the start to test you to see if they're willing to gain control of your life. If you say, no, we're going to keep it separate for a while, she may put up a big fight. It may turn into a big blow up, a big fight that night. Because she'll say, well, you say you're supposed to love me, but, and she'll play the love card But, you know, nowadays you got to be careful because there are many that are out for money and out for what they can get. If I had to do my life over again from the beginning, I would be independently wealthy right now. I would have no problems at my age. I trying to make people happy makes you broke, if you know what I mean. Some of you guys have dated a lot of women. You know what it's like. You're broke city because you got to try to impress. You got to spend money. You got to show off. If you got a little bankroll in your pocket, obviously you're going to pull it out and show her, you know. And then she's going to be getting thoughts in her mind like, how can I get that? You know, she's not going to like, well, how can I help you to get more? How can I help you to save? No, we're not going to go there because that costs money. Have you ever heard a girl say that?
Yes.
We're not going to go there because that costs money. Very few. If someone has said that to you, it's probably 1 in 100. Very few are concerned about you saving money. It's more like, how can you spend money? You know, I want to get a new shirt. You going to get it for me? I want to get a new pocketbook. You going to buy it for me? You know, can you? I'm going out to buy a car. Can you help put your name on to help me with it because my credit's not perfect, and maybe if you put your name, say she's trying to play you. You see what I'm saying? And then if she reneges on paying the payments, guess what? It's on you. It's going to affect your credit. What if you break up? What if you didn't marry the person and your name's on her car? You're done. You're done. You're done.
So, Mr. Rick, so how do you recognize a good woman then?
If you read Proverbs 31, it says, a virtuous woman, who can find? Who can find a virtuous woman? It says her price is far above rubies. There's very, and I'm being honest, there are very, very few virtuous women among Christianity. Women may claim that they are virtuous, they may want to be virtuous, but they don't live it out according to what Scripture says. Therefore, they're not virtuous. So, to find a virtuous woman is very hard to find.
Hold on with both hands.
If you find one, if you happen to find one, and they meet the qualifications, you know, there's qualifications in Scripture on how a woman's supposed to be. If they meet the qualifications, then you need to hold on to it because you'll probably not find another one. So you know, I tell people I believe this woman was a virtuous woman that this guy had, and she passed way past virtuous woman because she had the looks to go with it. She had drive the brand new Escalade. It had all the chrome on it. It was brand new. When she got out of there, she had the finest clothes. She was extremely beautiful. It might have been a time when Kevin was in the program. He wanted to leave the program. He was there for like maybe 6 months, and he was itching to get back with this beautiful woman. She'd come there on visits. Everybody was like, wow, I wish I had a woman like that. Well-to-do, financially stable, attractive, beautiful, and very committed spiritually. And he decided to leave, and within a month, he came crawling back early in the morning, knocking on the door, all filthy and dirty. He left with the finest clothes, and he comes crawling back, filthy and dirty, rocking back and forth, saying, I can't stop, I can't stop, I can't stop. He lost his wife permanently. That was it. That was his last opportunity, and he lost her because he was too anxious to get a quick fix. And I don't know where he went wrong, but he went wrong drastically and lost everything. So, you know, if you got a virtuous woman waiting for you, do it right, take your time, and make sure you're prepared and ready for all the ups and downs of life. Okay, it goes on, it says, we did exactly The same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. So I circled the word honestly, and that's underlined. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. So you mean to tell me that it's more than just the drugs and alcohol? There is something behind that that's causing me to fail. It says we searched out our flaws in our makeup, who we are, our personality, how we carry ourselves, how we talk, how we act, how we think. There's flaws within that. And it says we searched them out. What caused our failure? You know, a lot of stuff we do is subconscious. We're not aware of it. It has to be brought to our conscious awareness before we can even begin to deal with it. We may be doing things and acting ways and talking ways that we're totally not aware of. That's why it takes time to work through steps, because you gotta think through. You can't just sit down for 5 minutes and come up with 3 fears. You can't sit down and come up with people you've offended and different flaws and different resentments. When you come back and you only have 3 resentments, you're not doing no work. When you come back and you only have 3 sexual offenses, you're not doing no work. And I'm going to make a statement because it's something I've seen, and I'm just being honest. I'm not going to name names, but one sexual offense. You know, you're supposed to list your sexual offenses and harms, right? Instead of listening and thinking through, totally missed the mark. And I'm going to just say it outwardly, but I'm not going to mention the person's name. This is what was written down, and they'll feel a sense of conviction when I say it. Because it was like, oh, wow, that's exactly what I wrote down. Must be me. The only statement, basically, is I just been with a lot of women. That's it. That's the sexual offenses. I just been with a lot of them. Therefore, I can't write nothing down. But you still got to think through. Do you have children out of wedlock? That's a sexual harm. You're supposed to be married and committed and be in a situation that's healthy. That's a sexual flaw to have sex outside of marriage. If the person gets pregnant, it causes a problem. How about a woman who was a virgin? And you boasted about to all your guys, hey, man, I broke her virginity. It's supposed to be the great thing that men are supposed to be able to do, break a woman's virginity. But that's a sexual harm to her because you're not committed to her and you have no plans on her being your wife. So you deprived her of something and you caused her harm whether you know it or not. You know, you can think through. Have you ever given someone a venereal disease? Have you ever given somebody crabs? Have you ever given someone herpes or any other kind of disease? There was a guy in the program one time that was HIV positive, and he tried to run around and be with every woman he possibly could be with without telling them. That's a sexual harm. You know, you got to think through all the things and write, and it says put it down on paper. That's what it says. But once we get to that subject, we're going to dig deep and we're going to see some shocking revelations and methods by which we need to comply. So it goes on and it says in the middle of that little paragraph, being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. And then the next paragraph it says resentment. So you circle resentment, page 64. Resentment is the number 1 offender. It destroyed more alcoholics and drug addicts, because it always includes the drug addict, than anything else. Resentment. It says, from it stems all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So there's a lot of stuff we got to straighten out.
Amen.
If we keep anything in the dark, it's going to just continue to grow. And it's going to blossom into something. And it's going to be the cause of our downfall. So we've got to be blatantly honest. That's what it says. We took stock honestly. I'm going to read on down. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. I seen one person that had 5 pages, single spaced, of resentments. And I'm going to tell you who the person is, because Kevin knows who the person is. I was shocked. They showed me their book of resentments. It was like 5 pages long. They showed me their book of sexual harms, many pages. I'm like, wow, this guy was very thorough. Must have took him a long time to think of all that. And the person's name is John Clifford. He's now successfully been working in ministry for many years. But that guy was thorough in his recovery. And he showed me all the hard work he put into it. And I was quite shocked. First time I ever seen it. I've never seen it. I usually see like 3 or 4 sentences, and that's it. It says, dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, principles for whom we were angry. So we circle the word angry. We asked ourselves, why were we angry? We circle the word angry. That's the primary reason why we have anger resolution classes. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, was hurt or threatened. So we were sore. We were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relation, which had been interfered with? And then it gives a little example of how it's done in the AA book. And then I'll close with this here. It says, we went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. So it should take work. Now, the majority of you are not thorough. You're going to have to go back, take your relapse prevention book, and go back and turn page by page and make sure it is completely thorough. That takes a little bit of time to do that. And then later I'm going to look at them again. I handed out a paper showing the missing pages of work not being done. But we've got to be thorough. We've got to take our time. We've got to do it. It's something that we've got to do. We can't be any less than that. We've got to do it. We got to have thoroughness, and we've got to have honesty. Because it says nothing counts but that. So that's very important. Okay, someone want to close this out?